Okay, so I'm here at Murray Auto Electric in New Alexandria, PA to pick up my LED lights for the bus. So Andy here at Murray is going through my order for all LED lights. We got Maxima brand on everything for the bus, and these guys have really hooked me up. Gave me a good deal and great service. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is the prep work to drill the holes to mount the clearance lights, marker and clearance lights on the side of the bus where I've already wired. We'll be using this style of 7-inch transit style light surface mount for the back stop and turn and backup lights, as well as the front turn signals, and we're going to put them in the back at the very top. There'll be 2 red and 2 yellow for turn indication and stop up high. And then we're also using one of these red light bars in the center of the back, so there'll be lots of visibility when I hit the brakes. Also picked up these work lights to use as off-road lights, and then in here there's some smaller fog lights which will go below the headlights. These are all LED. These are also these are actual side directional indicators. They're going to go sort of in the skirt to alert cars that I'm about to turn if they're beside the bus. There are also additional marker lighting, so there'll be 4 lower marker lights on that on each side of the bus, but this one will blink for turns. So the bus will be pretty well lit. The only thing that's not going to be LED is the headlights. They're just pretty expensive. I'll leave the old halogen 5x8s or 5x7 bulbs in place and just add the fog lights if I need brightness. So anyhow, I'm going to get started.
Explain to me what you're doing here.
So we're drilling pilot holes for the stainless steel fasteners for the marker lights. This is for number 12 stainless steel screws for these particular lights. So what we'll do with these old holes is just fill them up with window sealing caulk, the clear goop. Max Quad or whatever they call it. OSI Quad.
Wow. You're good. What are you doing here?
Right now I'm going to trim these wires. I'm going to offset them so I can go back through the hole easily. I'm going to cut one shorter than the other. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll strip them. I'm going to do a lineman style splice with solder to those. Actually, that's not the best tool for that. I'll use this one. We'll use this one to strip them. Alright. Whoop, the wire fell out.
Wow, I've never seen a wire give someone that much difficulty.
Oh, it's falling through.
Oh, shoggies.
Luckily, that one's not hard to put back in.
We're gonna go see this incredible rescue.
Rescue. Ruh-roh,
I can get in there. I'm small.
Can you get in there?
Yeah.
I'll put the screwdriver through. Okay, so we've got this first light put together here so that we're ready to solder. We've got shrink tubing. I've twisted the wires together. Now I'm ready to go get some flux and soldering iron. The white wire here is ground. The red wire is positive. And then red is positive and black is ground inside the bus. So that's how those are going together.
Go.
Alright, so we're going to retest test the lights. I've bridged both sides together at the terminal blocks. Negative black, red is positive, and...
Woo! Look at that. We got it.
Alright, cool. Okay, so I'm back at the bus, and I'm going to work on the outside automotive lighting. And we're going to get these soldered up and get the wires put inside the wall, which might be a little bit of a challenge. It's a pretty tight space. I might have to punch through the foam a little bit, but that's what I'm going to do. Daylight's fading here quickly, so I might need to get my work lights out here. Okay, so I've used a soldering iron and some rosin core solder to do these connections. I'm going to let them cool, and then I'll melt the casings over top of them with a cigarette lighter or a heat gun or something. Then we'll get this mounted. But I'm doing the second one. Okay, so I got the first light fully installed here. I used some of that quad OSI caulk behind this gasket just to kind of help seal things up a bit. That should be good. I may also run a little bead around the outside after doing the final paint job, just to help water protect a bit more, but we'll just tape these off when we paint, and then I probably would run some clear caulk, around the outside for permanent seal. I'm going to use this quad OSI sealant. This is a window caulking clear. I'm going to put some on the holes for the screws. It's kind of set up already. This thing sets pretty quick. There's some there, and then we're going to coat this circle. Help seal things up from water, and put some inside. And then when we push this in, get the stainless steel fasteners here. When we screw it in, it'll seal up nice, along with this gasket that's already part of the light. So push that in. Okay, that one's done too. Okay, now this one's a little trickier because the wires won't push back in. They're cinched by the insulation. So what I'm going to do is, there's a recess in the light here. I'm going to carefully feed them into that recess. Maybe stick them in there with a little electrical tape, and then put the light up into the seal. I've already put the caulk behind the seal to help water seal things. Okay, so this red one, the third light, is put in position and sealed. Okay, so we've moved to the first light on the other side, and I'll get this one soldered and put in place. Okay, so that first one on the driver's side is done. Okay, so just testing the lights again, and it all works fine. Okay, so I'm back at the bus with some daylight here. I'm going to get the clearance lights put at the top rail all the way around for my first step here, and get that big ladder going around the bus. Okay, so I've got the first light on the roof here done. I think I'm going to rotate around the bus this way, and we'll start getting the identification lamps here done. So we're going to do these three a little different. I'm just going to fish the lights wires through after stripping some back on each of the three. We'll actually do the splicing all inside the bus. So I'm just going to mount the lights, then go inside to splice. Okay, so the first thing I had to do was actually get the holes put in the right spot. The old fixtures had the wiring coming sort of off to the side. These ones have it coming from the center. So, I had to line up the holes and put new grommets in to protect the wires. So we'll have to patch these with caulk and later patch them from the inside as well. Okay, so because there were so many holes that are going to need patched, and because these holes actually were lining up with where the mounting screw needed to go, I actually put this piece of metal backer in from the inside. I've got a couple screws in it right now. I'm going to add a screw here in the center and then a screw over here. These will be in between the lights. And eventually I'm going to put pop rivets in, but for now I'm trying to drill those screw holes, and then I'll put caulk in and tighten those up, and then I'll reverse these, then we'll mount the lights, then we'll withdraw the screws and put pop rivets in. That's the best way, I think, to get it done. Okay, so I got these 3 identification lamps in place. My next step is going to be to get some 3/16 rivets and pop these screws out and put rivets in. Okay, so we've got the identification lamps in the front mounted. Turned out okay. One's slightly crooked, but it's hard to notice from the ground. Got it all sealed up with caulk, and I'll have to wire from the inside. Got the wires all stripped and ready to be fastened on the inside, so that'll come after I keep working outside with the daylight. Okay, so I've got the middle one done, and I did the one on that corner over there, so I had to break out the light. I'm going to get the last one on this side done, then we'll move to the other side. Okay, I'm back at the bus, and I did last night get these 3 lights up at the top rail. I'm trying to go around and do the back, but it just started drizzling on me. Not a heavy rain, but I wouldn't say that Mother Nature's cooperating. So I want to get the ID lamps put in the center back here, and I'm not going to be able to mount the lights up high for turn and stop. I got to get some paint behind those first, some primer. But then I've got to do 2 more lights on this side, and then I'll have all the marker clearance and ID lamps done. So hopefully get a break in the rain here. It doesn't drizzle on me hard. Where it's at right now, I think I can work, but you know, clouds are threatening to drop more rain, so we'll see what happens. Okay, so on this side, these grommets are actually in the right place, and I'll be able to seal these holes with just the clear caulk behind the fixtures. So I'm going to get to drilling some holes and mount these lights real quick. Okay, so I've drilled some fresh pilot holes with the 3/16 bit for number 12 stainless fasteners. These are just sheet metal screws I'm using. So now all I have to do is put caulk on and get the fixtures screwed in place. I'm going to wire these from the inside. Okay, so I've got this ready to screw in place. You can see I put a generous layer of clear caulk over all the places where water could infiltrate. That's what I've been doing. This is quad OSI window caulk. Very sticky. It's like an adhesive caulk, similar to Sikaflex, but I think it's made of different stuff. Okay, so that one's in place. Now I'm just gonna rinse and repeat here. Okay, and that was only about 10 minutes of work to get the 3 ID lamps in place, nicely sealed. Definitely helped on the back here that the holes were in the right place to begin with. Okay, so I also just put the first 7-inch transit style light up. I've got to decide. I think I'm going to go horizontal with them. I'm going to do turn, stop, and backup light here. Maybe. Thinking about how that would go best, but I think in a line horizontally would work. Okay, so what I did here is I just looked at the center to center distance between these lights here for the screws. It's 8.5. Then I went out to 17, lined the template up, marked it out. So I'm going to drill some holes now for the backup lights. Okay, and that's one side completed. I think it looks great. Now I'll get the other backup light on that side. Okay, so I've got all 6 of these lights, 7-inch transit style LED lamps on the back hatch. I'll later patch these holes with some Bondo. I'll just get some sheet metal behind them, and then probably with 2-sided tape, and then we'll Bondo, and that should be good before the final paint job. Another thing I've thought about doing is actually building a cowl for the back here with louvers so that we can release excess heat. I may end up doing that here in this section. If that plan comes together, I may put 2 vented louvers there, and then we'll have our logo in the middle, probably backlit with I'm not sure what color, probably red, because it's legal for tail light. So and then in the front we'll probably pick a different color, but anyhow, I'm also going to put a stop bar in the center right under the window, and then we've got 4 more lights to put up here. I'm going to have to wait for it to stop raining, put some primer on. I've got to clean up the eyebrows and mount those as well when we install those lights. Okay, so I just also mounted that center stop bar. So I have that, and then I've also got stop lights and turn signals going up top. So it'll be very apparent, even when towing, that the bus is stopping or turning. Okay, so right now I'm going to be putting the front turn signals in here. I have put plenty of OSI caulk behind this gasket. Now I'm going to stick the gasket in, then we'll mount the light. So the holes were already drilled at the right size, even though those prior lights were rectangular. They were still 7-inch rectangular or square. So anyhow, these will fit like a glove, so that's nice. Okay, so I fastened this turn lamp, and on the back side I've used a bunch of this caulk sealant to kind of fill up the hole so there won't be any ingress of water through there. I'm going to replace the seals on these hatches as well. So, and I'll probably build something from the inside of the bus for security to pin them shut, possibly riveting some kind of a 90-degree angle here and having a pin go through something that comes in from the inside, just for better security. So now I'm going to do this side. Okay, so both front turn signals are in place. What remains is I've got 2 clearance lamps on this side, and then I'm going to put the off-road lights and the eyebrows up there. I've got a later mount, probably in the bumper, the 2 fog lights. Will either be mounted in the bumper or below the bumper. I have to think about that, but there'll be 2 fog lights below the headlights. And then in the back I need to mount the remaining 4 lights, the 2 stop and 2 turn indicators, and the eyebrows in the back. I also forgot, I'm going to have some clearance lights, not clearance lights, some turn signals that are also marker lights right behind the front wheels here. They're going to be mounted in the skirt, recessed, sticking out probably right here on each side. Then I'm also planning to have a red light strip on a switch right there, and then also right here by the back tire. Those will be mounted vertically, the same stop bars as we used in the back of the bus. I've got 4 of those, and I'm going to have them on a switch so that when we're pulling in a campsite I can have a little bit of red light, which doesn't cause night blindness, around the edge of the bus, just to be able to maneuver better without disturbing anybody. And then we will also have, if we really need a lot of light, we'll have off-road lights mounted pointing this direction toward the back of the bus. They'll be mounted on the probably on the mirror mounts with a clamp, so that they're on the switch as well. There'll be 2 facing back, 1 on each side, to shine bright light beside the bus for parking and maneuvering at night. So, but if there are other people, I wanted red light so that I didn't disturb people as I pulled in. Okay, so I've got this clearance light, and I've got 1 more in the middle to do. Getting a little wet. It's kind of hard to solder in the rain, not the best situation, but I want to get this done. Okay, so that middle light there was the last marker or clearance light I need to do, except for the turn signal ones in the skirt. So at this point I have 1, 2, 3, 4 off-road lights. I got a turn signal and stop, 2 of each on the back, And then I need to do the side turn signals. But I'm getting close to finished here with the LED lights installation. I will have some wiring to do still to get them all connected. Okay, so I'm back at the bus. It's a little after 6 p.m. on a Sunday. It's of course dark outside, being close to the shortest days of winter here. So what I'm going to do today is the wiring for the inside here. I'm going to run front to back with the taillight wiring with 2 of these junction boxes. I've got to look at my documentation for the wire numbers coming out of the electronic box here. Maybe get the batteries connected and test the turn signals and things to make sure I have the right wires. And I'm not sure how far I'll get. I'm also going to try to wire up the ID lamps front and back. Get them spliced in place. So anyhow, I'm going to get at it. Okay, so I've decided to mount the terminal block for the signals and for the trailer wiring here. I'll be able to run it straight back along the roof here, or along the shroud, and then down the channel over here to where I have the wires entering. I have those entering over here. Get some light. I have them coming through right there where I wired that outlet. So I'll be pulling wires through. There'll be a total of probably 9, because I'm going to run 2 wires for power and ground for the diesel heater while I'm back here. Okay, so I've got the first 3 wires, ring terminal connectors on. These are 14 gauge. Got them on the posts, just loose. I'm going to run the next 4 wires for this, along with a couple extra for the diesel heater. So I'm going to get at it. I'm running them this way in bundles because that way I can easily take up the slack without wasting wire. So cut it to the right length inside. Okay, so I've actually put up a piece of loom here and some brackets to run the route for the wire all the way down the wall here, and then it goes over. And above the radiator, I've got clamps in place. So that'll take it in and keep it away from the heat here. So I'll probably zip strip it to those clamps, and those will be useful if I run any other wires. But for now, I've got to go in and cut the length of the wires and then run new wire out here and put it through the loom as well. Okay, so I'm going to call it quits for tonight. I've got all the wires run from box to box. I need to get some more ring terminals, some a little low. These are the hot wire and ground to go to the diesel heater, which is going to be mounted over in this part of the bus. I've left plenty of extra cable here, or extra wire, to get that done. That's going to go to a 110 to 12 volt power inverter for now. Eventually it'll go on the house batteries. But for right now, I've got this loom run neatly. I've got it connected down with some clamps, and I've got it over here. Yeah, you can't really see. Let me move the light. So over here, I've got the loom run on those stainless clamps, one right there, one right there, and then I'm going to wire tape that tomorrow. Got to pull the slack out of the wires, wrap that in tape with the Romex all the way to that piece of conduit right there. So anyhow, that's it for tonight. Okay, so I'm back at the bus. This week here in western Pennsylvania, we got about 10 inches of snow starting to slowly melt off here. So I haven't been the bus much this week, but at this point I am going to finish working on the automotive wiring. I've got to get up into the ID lamps and get those soldered back in the engine bay, connect up the tail lights. I've got a ladder here that I can maneuver through the snow much easier. That'll help me get the auxiliary turn signals and stop lamps installed as well. I think the first thing I'm going to do is put a little paint up on those so that while I'm working it'll dry sufficiently that I can install the ID lamps. So the first thing I think I'm going to do here is try to paint. Not ideal temperature, but it's going to be hidden behind anyhow. Okay, so even though it's much colder than I should have outside to paint, I put some primer on these small spots which will go behind the lights. I just wanted to get them primed so I can install these lights in the near future here. These will get wired directly down to the block in the engine bay. I'm going to have to drill a small hole on the inside into the bay, close to the edge here. That will probably also serve as the hole for the controls for the diesel heater. So anyhow, just wanted to get some paint up. Now I'm going to start splicing wiring. Just a little bit of a visual here on how much snow we got. It kind of drifted up in the bottom of the bus as it was parked. Okay, so I'm going to put some ring terminals on these wires, get this cleaned up. We'll be also putting terminals on the connectors coming out of, or on the wires coming out of the electronic box of the bus, associating those with the ones running to the back for the taillights and whatnot. So anyhow, after I've got these things figured out, or maybe even before, I'm going to reconnect the batteries outside and check the signals and see what's what, just to make sure before I screw everything down. Okay, so I've wound this bundle in electrical tape and brought it over. I've got ring terminals on. Got the wires color coded based on this setup of color codes on the boxes themselves. I need to determine again, pay attention to which of these lights here, which of these wires goes to which of these. So I'll have to look at the wiring diagram for the bus, double check, also do some empirical testing here with my multimeter and the turn signal and brake pedal and things like that. So at this point I think I'm going to go plug the batteries in. I'm going to look around, make sure I don't have any shorted wires laying on metal, and then I'm going to plug the batteries in and see if I can figure all this out. Okay, so looking at the wiring diagram, this node here that connects the brown and white and the brown and the two white wires, those go to the clearance and marker lights. These go to the tail and marker power strip in the box here. This all is fed by this brown wire. Those four wires are joined here at one junction point. So we'll leave it like that, but that's showing me for sure that this is the positive voltage for basically all the lights that are going to come on when the headlights are turned on. Or I think it's a headlight, and I'll test it, but I think it's when the switch is thrown for the headlights, all the side marker and clearance lights and the tail lights come on, and they're all junctioned here. So we're going to leave it like that, run it the same way, so that it's left and right, you know, and I don't know, well, I guess I could actually just splice this as one wire going to the block. I may do it that way. I have to think about it. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is using a soldering iron and some rosin core solder, putting the shrink tubes over them, and I've got the first one done. That's the marker and clearance wire. Now I'm doing the left turn signal wire. Got a few more to do here. Then I'm going to slide this loom over it after taping it all up, and it should make a nice waterproof connection, permanent connection, instead of those factory clips, and it'll simplify the wiring. Okay, so I've got all these in the electronic cabinet here dealt with. At this point I've also put a terminal, a ring connector on the end of this white wire, which is going to be the ground or negative for the auto lights. I've labeled it. It's screwed into the case here, just where another ground was sitting. So Anyhow, at this point, I'm going to put the loom together, and I think we're probably ready to start wiring tail lights. Okay, so I've got this box all wired up here through this loom, and the next step will be to connect the battery and check the marker and clearance lights, make sure they come on when I turn the headlights on, and then I'm going to go to the back of the bus and get the tail lights all wired, but that'll happen tomorrow. It's time to quit today. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is wiring all these tail lights. I'm starting with the ground. I'm going to use a crimp connector, a Buchanan crimp connector, to crimp the ground to this side, and then run a wire over to this side and crimp those to it. So anyhow, I'm going to get that tool and a crimp cap, and then what I'll do with the crimp cap is just coat it in quite a bit of electrical tape. Okay, so I have that crimp cap on. Now I'm going to put this Buchanan tool over it and crimp it down. Hard to hold the camera and do this at the same time. Yeah, I'm going to put the camera down. Okay, so I've got that crimped together. It's a pretty sweet tool. I used to be able to find caps for this tool to cover. I don't know where the heck they are, but seem difficult to find. But I'm going to coat this in a thick layer of electrical tape, and then eventually this will be covered, or it'll have a wire loom over it. So now I'm going to splice this one and run across to connect the grounds to that side, and in the middle here to this ground wire. Okay, so I've got the grounds all tied together with those splice caps or splice connectors. Now I'm going to cover the splice connectors with electrical tape nice and thick, and eventually this will be in a wire loom. Okay, so last night I wired up the tail lights. This is an additional tail. It's going to go up inside for the top lights. Similarly, we've got one for clearance lights to be wired to the stop bar for just tail light. And then on this side we've got a signal indicator here to go up, and this one as well. And then here we've got another clearance light, and these are going to get wired here, up in here for when the hood's open. If we're on the side of the road, and the headlights are on, I want the lights to shine. So as they're wired today, I've got to replace those old ones with some new LED ones. Just got to locate those around here somewhere. So anyhow, I'm going to keep wiring stuff today. Alright, so I removed the rusty old dirt-filled lights that were back on these tabs. Now I'm going to put these on, the marker clearance style lights. So again, the purpose of these is if you're working on the side of the road at night or looking at the engine or whatever, you want to have lights shining so that you don't get hit. So anyhow, that's what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm mounting lights. I've already got that one up. So what I did is drilled the 1/2-inch hole, put the rubber grommet in to protect the wires, wrapped a little bit of electrical tape to keep them from wiggling against the grommet, and what I'm doing now is I've drilled the screw holes, and I'm going to put the stainless fasteners in. Okay, so I actually connected the battery and tested. I think the bus may have sat too long. It wouldn't start. I think I may need to bleed air out of the fuel system. It may have lost prime is what I'm thinking, but it turns over. It just doesn't start. So that to me means fuel. And the turn signals are not lighting up. So I don't know if that's because that circuit's only active when the engine is running. I'm not sure. I need to look at the diagrams. It's hard to do on my phone. So have a little bit of research to do on the electrical schematics. Need to talk to my diesel mechanic to see where I should bleed the fuel to see if that's the issue. But I think for the rest of the day today, I'm just going to clean up The good news is the marker and clearance lights all light up when the headlights are on, so that's good. Just the turn signals are the issue and getting this thing started. So it's either too cold or the fuel is not getting to the injectors. Alright, so that's some good news. I didn't really do anything. Must have just taken time. Okay, so yesterday I could not get the turn signals to blink as I was testing things. I think that's because I don't have enough resistance, so I got resistors. I also ordered relays instead of the resistors to have something to play with. Their variable speed electronic relays. On this it's EF32, I believe, that is the size, but I'll confirm that as I try to install those. One for the turn signals and one for the four-way flasher. The reason is that LEDs use so much less power than incandescent bulbs that the mechanical flashers for turn signals don't function properly. So I was getting some voltage alternating here, but it was less than 5 volts, so that would make it so the LEDs were not being activated. So what I'm going to do is pull the relay, test it with the multimeter, make sure I'm getting a 12-volt source. That relay functions ahead of the flasher switch here on the steering column. I believe it's feeding both right and left, so that's where there's only one relay. So I looked at the schematic, I found that. Now I'm going to test for 12 volts on that, and I will then try these resistors, see if that fixes the problem. Ultimately, I don't really want resistors, I don't want heat, but these are part of the troubleshooting. I'm going to wire them near this panel here, or near this terminal strip here. One for right, one for left, if they actually function properly with this in place. And then we'll take it from there and see what the issue is. Okay, so I think some of my problems here may be caused by low battery voltage. These were sitting for months, cold weather hit. The actual voltage coming out at the solenoid in the front panel was only 11.6, I believe. Really low, so basically it means these batteries need a good healthy charge. I've got them on a bulk charge right now, and I'm going to go do some other stuff, and hopefully that results in everything coming back to life and the engine starting easier and things like that. I did start it yesterday. It just took a while for the wait to start lamp to come on and give me an indication. So anyhow, I think this will be good. Once the batteries get a good charge, it'll help out. I did find the same voltage in the back where the turn signal is that I did in the front when I shunted the relay, the flasher, but for some reason the turn signal lamp's still not coming on. I might have a bad connection on that, or it could be, I guess, the LED bulb is bad, the yellow one, so we'll find out. Okay, so while I'm waiting for the battery to charge up, watching the bulk charge go here, I am wiring loom to clean this up in the back. The only question mark here is the turn signals. I'm not sure why they're not lighting up. I assume it's low voltage on the battery. There must be something digital about them that makes them require a full 12 volts. I'm not sure, but we'll find out in a minute. Okay, so I've got all these wires cleaned up in a loom. So they're protected. They're all bracketed to the tailgate, or the hatch here. And then I've also got some protective loom going underneath here where the bend happens. I'm leaving this alone because I'm eventually going to wire a trailer light set up where the charging cable used to be. We'll take this out and we'll put the trailer connector there. I guess I might as well remove that now if I can. Okay, so I'm back at the bus here. Got my smart charger out, topping off the batteries. They're at like 12.4 volts. Want to get them up to 12.9 maximum charge. So I'm also painting these eyebrows for the top lights, the off-road lights in the front, and the turn and stop lamps I'm going to put up at the top and the back. So there's 8 of these. We're going to hit them with some black Rust-Oleum, let them dry so that I can mount them behind the new lamps. Okay, so it's New Year's Eve, and my nephew Joshua helped me clean up the inside of the bus, organizing things according to their function, and ran the vacuum in here. So now I'm less likely to trip and kill myself while working in the bus. Thank you, Joshua. Alright, so I'm at the bus here. I was trying to see if just plugging in a relay would fix it. This is a electronic relay right here. Give a little bit of close-up. Right there. That's because it's LED. I don't know if I have all the connections terminated right now. I'm at a point where this mess here is causing me a lot of aggravation, confusion. I think I'm going to print out schematics for this bay and delete buttons up top that aren't needed anymore, and remove the wiring associated with those circuits, and just make this a little more Spartan so it's easier to troubleshoot stuff. That's going to be a whole project in and of itself. This electrical stuff's dragging on, partly because of the short days. Once you lose daylight, it's kind of obnoxious to work on stuff like this. So anyhow, it's likely going to drag on here till I get the automotive wiring all cleaned up. But like anything else, one thing at a time, and I'll get it done. Okay, so I finally figured out my turn signal issue. Don't know what it actually was. I just re-terminated the connections and tested everything. And the key ignition, of course, has to be on. Well, I don't know if that's an of course. It has to be on. I'm not sure if that's actually how it's supposed to be, but I will demonstrate that here a little bit after it gets dark. Right now I'm using my daylight to get the top lights mounted. There's going to be a stop and a turn on each side up the top here. And then I got to finish wiring the ID lights and those lamps and the stop bar. Okay, so I used a straight edge and a Sharpie to mark the center for my wire grommet, and I'm going to get those holes drilled. Then I'll do both sides like that, and I'll bring a light up and pre-drill the mark and pre-drill the holes. And I'm actually going to put the eyebrows back on with the light with the same screws. So the eyebrows will be mounted on these 3 screws, and I'll use that same window caulking, that clear stuff, to really seal things up good as I mount it. So and then this screw hole here, well, it might not be exactly in that spot, but the light itself will also have a screw at the bottom. So anyhow, we're going to get at this, and hopefully I can get these all mounted before it gets too dark. Okay, so those holes are drilled. Now I'm going to put the grommets in place, and then I will go get the lights and the eyebrows. And so I don't have to move the ladder too much, I'll mount those first. Okay, so it's really late at night, and I've got one of these top lights mounted. It's not on, that's just the flash from the camera shining off of the reflector. But I got this turn signal mounted. You can see how I've done that. I hit this with some spray paint. It'll get taped off and repainted at some point with better paint, but this is not the right weather for good painting. But we'll eventually sand this a bit and put better paint on it. But it'll still stay black. Trim pieces, accent pieces are going to be black. But I got this light on. Now I'm going to get this one on tomorrow and keep moving. And then I'll get the ID lamps front and back wired up. At that point, along with these lights, I'll have the automotive signals and indicators all done. So I am still trying to figure out the 4-way flasher, but I'm sure I'll get through that as well. So anyway, that's it for tonight. Okay, so I can show you the turn signal works here. We got the clearance lights on. I've pulled the headlight switch. And then in the back here, you can see both red and yellow lights. Well, that's weird. It was working. Now it's not working. What is going on? This is very strange. Yeah, I fiddled with it a little bit. I don't know, it seems intermittent. It was working earlier. Very strange. Okay, so I think I figured it out. The hazard light switch was open, and I know that the hazard lights aren't working, so when I shut off the hazard lights, the turn signals function. I didn't realize I left them on when I was testing them. So, you know, we've got the glow here of the tail lights, but then the turn signals do now function. It's just a mystery why the hazard signals causing such issues. I think that must have been the issue the whole time. The hazard switch was somehow on, but it's not functioning. So anyhow, I'll have to look at the schematic and trace the wires and figure that one out. Alright, so I'm back at the bus here on a Sunday. My goal today here in the next few hours is to get the lights on the top here, possibly get the off-road lights mounted in the front in the same top position with the eyebrows, and get things wired up inside as best I can. So I'm going to get at it pretty quick here. Okay, so I got the second light up here in the back, and now I'm going to move to the other side. Okay, so I used a straight edge, drilled some pilot holes after marking the rough center. I just used these screw holes from before to kind of mark the center. So now I'm going to run the 1/2-inch bit and put the grommets in. Alright, so I drilled those half holes and got the grommets in place. Now I'm going to use the 3/16 bit for number 12 screws for these holes, all 4 of them on each, and then I'll mount the lights with the OSI quad sealant. Alright, so now I have the pilot holes drilled for the screws, so it's time to apply the goop and mount the lights. Okay, so you can see how I've applied the goop here. I've made sure that I go around the grommet with it at the top so that water would roll off if it happened to infiltrate. So, and then around the seal where the piece of metal was. So hopefully that spreads and seals everything up as the light gets put on. Alright, so I've got those mounted with one screw loosely. Now I go inside and pull the wires tight so that they're not squished behind the lights. Okay, and those 2 lights are now mounted. So at this point I can finish the automotive wiring. The off-road lights can be a separate project. They're actually going to be switched through the Arduino. So anyhow, I'm going to adjust to the 2 screws over here that aren't making full penetration into the metal. Check that from inside, and then I'll be ready to wire. Okay, so I've been twisting wires together, getting all these lights wired up. Got the stop lamp in the middle wired. This will need cleaned up a bit. I'm thinking I may want to test these before I solder, but I've got to make sure I don't short circuit things. I also got the front identification lamps twisted together. So I may just wrap them in a little bit of loose electrical tape and then test to make sure before I solder. Okay, so we're going to test the lights. I'm going to pull the headlights on here. Got those on. I know that my headlight bulbs are not working, but I don't know if they were working before. I'm going to try a left turn signal while we go here. That's a good sign. It's flashing on the dashboard. So, alright, so we've got the marker and clearance lights functioning. The ID lamps came on. That's good. These are not on yet, I don't think. Or are they? Yeah, no, that's because I got this ground going on over here temporarily. Let me push this into the bus. Let's see if we get a good ground going. Yeah, there we go. So that light came on for clearance. And then I can see the light flashing over there. So I think we're good on those 2. I just have to make a permanent ground out of it. Marker and clearance lights are working here. Let's look in the back and see if we've got tail lights functioning. There we go, left turn. That's what we want, top and bottom. Good stuff. All the tail lights are on. Of course, the reverse lamps I tested before, they were working. So that's all happy. The ID lamps are working. Now we're going to try the right turn signal. I think we might have success here with the couple of cleanup items. And then I can solder. Alright. So that's good. Indicator is a flash. Test the ground here. Just grounding it out to the chassis. Let's see this light here. Okay, that's flashing. That's good. That light's on for clearance over there. We're good there. And see if we have a right turn signal functioning top and bottom in the back. And after that, I think we'll call it a success. Flashing and flashing. That's good. All right, so we're happy. And the license plate lamp works as well. So at this point, I can solder up wires, and then I can troubleshoot the hazard and headlights, but I'm not going to bore you with that stuff. Okay, so I've got the hazards working. I've got the headlights working. The headlight was just loose in its socket, and the hazard lights, actually the switch on the column's just a little wobbly, doesn't make good contact, needs replaced. So the hazard switch is the issue. I'm not sure yet what was going on with the brake lights, but I'm going to keep figuring that out. The brake lights are the last thing that wasn't working last night, but the hazard's resolved, so that's good news. Alright, so I'm going to go hit the brake pedal and see if the lights come on video here.